After reincarnating, I went straight to Bai Fu. I dropped a bombshell on him, brother Bai. Would you go ask my father for my hand in marriage? Honest Bai Fu froze for a moment. Then exclaimed in delight, good heavens! Is this really happening? Before I could elaborate, the usually composed man took off running toward my house. Thankfully, he was willing. I wiped the corner of my eye. No more enduring the injustices of my past life. In my previous life, I married Song Qing. He was my childhood sweetheart, betrothed to me since infancy by our mothers. I'd followed him around since childhood and felt deep affection for him. His mother was my mother's closest confidant. Both mothers held high hopes for our union. My mother told me, you know his family inside out. I trust Song Qing will treat you well for the rest of his life. His mother said, I've watched this girl grow up. She's like my own daughter. If Song Qing ever dares mistreat you, I'll be the first to make him pay. I believed both of them. After our marriage, Song Qing treated me as any nobleman would his primary wife, granting me household authority, bestowing the dignity and respect due a principal consort, cherishing our legitimate son, and standing united with my family through thick and thin. Not a single fault could be found. Both my mother and his mother were thoroughly satisfied. Yet for me, that indescribable sense of injustice and oppression made me secretly regret countless times that I hadn't listened to my father back then. In my previous life, the day before the wedding, my father sought me out urgently. Seeing my eyes brimming with joy, he held back what he wanted to say. I noticed and tugged at his sleeve, pouting, Father, just tell me what's on your mind. I thought he'd advise me to be a good wife. That's what he told my older sisters before their weddings. But he didn't. He gritted his teeth and said, Banksia, instead of marrying Song Qing, would you consider Bai Fu? Trust me. Bai Fu is better than Song Qing. If you agree, I'll arrange it. My raised lips instantly drooped. Had my father lost his mind? My wedding was imminent and he wanted to swap grooms and marry Bai Fu. Bai Fu was merely my father's disciple. We had no private connection beyond exchanging formal greetings when we met. This was sheer meddling. Father, have you been drinking? But he carried not a trace of alcohol. Seeing me stare at him as if he were mad, he said no more, sighed, and left. The next day, I married Song Qing, and now my father grins like a fool. He says, who'd have thought, Banksia, you have such discernment. Father agrees, I consent to you marrying Bai Fu. Bai Fu stood behind him, smiling at me with a simple warm expression. Gone was his usual aloofness. My mother's face darkened. She said, Song Qing is away with his father and will return soon. He and Banksia are betrothed. How can we give Banksia to another? It wasn't that my mother disliked Bai Fu. It was just that she favored Song Qing more. Bai Fu grew anxious at this. I quickly reassured her, Mother, the engagement between me and Song Qing was merely a casual suggestion made by you and his mother. Over the years, if they truly intended it, they would have long since drawn up marriage contracts, exchanged birth charts, and presented tokens of betrothal. But look, they haven't done any of that. This proves that only you took this engagement seriously. No. Mother protested, flustered. She said, you and Song Qing grew up together, your bond is deep, both his mother and I thought it was a done deal. Song Qing surely felt the same, so he didn't bother with formalities. But Mother, I pressed, isn't marriage such a significant matter that it deserves proper attention? My mother faltered. She was momentarily at a loss for words. My father chimed in, exactly. His father was posted as an official 3 years away. He went with him. The journey was long. Yes, we understand he couldn't return to see us, Banksia. But a letter? Surely he could have sent one? My mother froze. My father had struck her right in the heart. She realized it too. Unconsciously, she turned to Bai Fu. Bai Fu immediately pulled the marriage contract from his bosom and handed it over. Whoever's heart is truly sincere will show it immediately. My father stroked his beard and smiled. My mother paused, then smiled, since that's the case, let's arrange your wedding this year. My father, and Bai Fu were all filled with surprise and delight. Bai Fu rubbed his hands nervously. Mother, could we do it next month? I'll be of marriageable age by the end of this month. Next month, he'll take me as his bride. My mother's eyes widened. She finally understood how anxious a man could become when he truly cherished and valued a woman. How could he have remained silent for 3 whole years? Though she knew Bai Fu's sincerity, my mother still felt a twinge of reluctance. She looked at Bai Fu with a troubled expression. My father, ever observant, gave Bai Fu a kick. He clutched his rear and scampered off. Grinning, he didn't forget to turn back and flash me smile after smile. News of Bai Fu and my engagement spread. Bai Fu spread it. He sought advice from my father's other disciples. Master has agreed to my marriage with Banksia. I wish to wed her as soon as possible. How should I proceed? Help! The disciples were dumbfounded. Master's beautiful, precious youngest daughter was being snatched away by this honest simpleton? Amidst a chorus of lamentations, the news swept across Pingzhou. Song Qing still had many relatives and friends in Pingzhou. Someone passed him the news. They say upon hearing it, his eyes bulged, and he whipped his horse like a madman. He broke several horses before arriving at my family's doorstep the next day. The steward hurried to welcome him inside. My parents received him warmly. Song Qing scanned the room but didn't see me. Panicked, he banged his head on the ground before my parents, begging to see me. My mother felt awkward but didn't hide the truth. Banksia was already betrothed. With the wedding date set, she couldn't see any other men. Hearing this, Song Qing fainted. My father felt his pulse at the philtrum and reassured my mother. Don't worry. He's merely asleep. Yet he discreetly summoned the estate physician. The physician diagnosed Song Qing as having fainted from a sudden surge of distress. My father interrupted. To outsiders, say only that young Master Song grew weary and has fallen asleep. He murmured under his breath. We cannot let him ruin Banksia and Bai Fu's marriage. The physician was utterly loyal to my father. Upon hearing this, he promptly added several sedative herbs to the prescription. This time, Song Qing truly slept. Meanwhile, my mother finalized our wedding date with the Bai family, registered the marriage contract with the authorities, and merged our household registrations. The speed of these actions left my father and me dizzy. Half a month later, Song Qing finally awoke. Only 7 days remained until my wedding to Bai Fu. Seeing the red silk banners hung throughout the mansion, he was startled. After inquiring and confirming it was for my marriage, he coughed up a large mouthful of blood, but this time, he didn't lose consciousness. He couldn't understand, why had my parents suddenly arranged my marriage? And why had I agreed? Agreed to marry someone else? What was he supposed to do? After learning Bai Fu and I were climbing Fame Mountain, he staggered after us. My mother encouraged Bai Fu and me to meet often before the wedding. She said there wasn't time to cultivate feelings from scratch, but each meeting deepened affection. She believed love was built over time. I both agreed and disagreed. Having lived with Song Qing for decades in my past life, and now over a decade in this one, I only wanted to keep my distance. Being with Bai Fu, however, made me feel settled, as if even a single day together brought peace. Every moment spent with him brought me comfort, joy, and ease. Each day made me cling to him more. I don't understand where he gets this power. Perhaps, as the storybooks say, he is someone who nourishes me, whereas Song Qing is someone who drains me. I love standing atop Mount Mingwang, where Pingzhou spreads out before my eyes. The magnificent landscape unfolds like a vast canvas, filling me with extraordinary ease. Whenever the weather is fine, Bai Fu invites me to climb the mountain. We hike together to the summit, reveling in the view for a while before descending the same path. Along the way, we chatted and laughed. Near the base, we encountered Song Qing, panting heavily as he sat on a roadside stone. Seeing him, Bai Fu and I were both startled. The mountain winds were fierce. He'd only just regained consciousness. Was he trying to kill himself? But looking into his eyes, filled with such determination, We both understood he needed closure. Bai Fu glanced at me, nodded, and walked down the mountain alone. I composed myself, sat down on a rock, and positioned myself one person's width away from Songqing. Why? Banksia. After receiving the news, I raced here all the way, pondering the entire journey. What exactly made you abandon me? Many thoughts came to mind. First, I never formalized our engagement with a marriage contract, making you feel I didn't value our union. Second, I never gave you a token of my affection, leaving you uncertain of my feelings. Third, these years I treated you with proper courtesy, too mindful of boundaries, lacking intimacy. Fourth, these past 3 years I never returned nor wrote, making you feel I could take you or leave you. Fifth, when my father returned from his post, he brought gifts, making you feel our families were no longer equally matched. Sixth, my mother dotes on me to the extreme, and you feared that after marrying me, she would torment you while I offered no protection. Seventh, he listed many points, but the essence was this: he assumed our hearts were already in harmony, so he neglected the details of nurturing our bond. He repeatedly emphasized that I held his heart, that he genuinely intended to marry me as his wife, and he promised over and over that he would treat me well for the rest of our lives. I believed his words, because in my past life, he hadn't treated me badly. He gave me the respect due a husband and often sent me gifts. He was also considerate toward my family. My mother was satisfied with him her entire life. Even my father never uttered a single word of complaint. But, well, I listened quietly. Songqing was sincere. Before my rebirth, we grew up together. He often visited my home, and we met frequently. Yet we never developed a profound connection. I believe it stemmed from his lack of heartfelt effort. Had he thought as deeply and intently as he does now, things would surely have been different for me. Though he couldn't match Bai Fu's depth, he still might have captivated me. But he didn't. He merely believed deep down that I was suitable to be his legitimate wife. For a legitimate wife, respect was enough, love wasn't necessary. If he gave love, he wouldn't be able to spare attention for so many other women. Love is exclusive, it means she alone is irreplaceable. Love is profound, it doesn't just notice whether a smile graces her face, but whether joy fills her heart. True love is a capacity, not everyone possesses it. Songqing simply wasn't someone capable of truly loving another. His current anguish stemmed not from realizing he loved me, but from trying to win back the woman he deemed suitable as his wife. Yet he wasn't truly wicked either. It was just that he, and the life he offered, weren't what I desired. After coming to this realization, I spoke slowly. I told him I'd had a dream about my previous life. We had married. He treated me well. He immediately grew anxious. Then why did you marry someone else in this life? I replied, having lived through one lifetime already, I didn't want to repeat it in this one. Why? Wasn't I good to you? I lowered my head, I couldn't explain. Those thoughts, those sleepless nights, that unseen sorrow, that suppressed resentment, I couldn't share them with him. It was my problem, not his. And no matter how he pressed, I wouldn't answer. Despair shattered the light in his eyes. He said, something must have happened to make you misunderstand me. I'll find out what it is and clear up this misunderstanding. Banksia, wait for me. I shook my head again, telling him firmly, there really is no misunderstanding. In our past life, you were always open with me, never hiding anything. Then why? He asked. Why don't you want me in this life? I fell silent again. Just then, Bai Fu returned, so I rose and followed him down the mountain, leaving Songqing alone in the mountains, lost in thought. Could his body endure this? I worried a little. If Songqing truly fell gravely ill or passed away because of this, my family would be in deep trouble. Bai Fu said he'd sent word to my father after descending the mountain. He couldn't let me bear that risk. I lifted my eyes to look at him. He truly was good, the kind of goodness that nestled deep within the heart, every thread of it warm and comforting. Unconsciously, I reached out to touch his hand, feeling it. He immediately took mine in his. A wave of warmth surged from my fingertips through every limb and bone, every ounce of feeling I had for him he could hold, despite Song Qing's desperate pleas, despite even bringing his mother into the matter, Bai Fu and I still married as planned. He couldn't wait, neither could I. The day before the wedding, I sought out my father. I asked him, "Father, in your heart, Bai Fu is better than Song Qing. Could you tell your daughter why?" Even before Song Qing accompanied his father to Anzhou, my father had advised my mother that Bai Fu was a better choice for a son-in-law than Song Qing. Bai Fu was my father's disciple. Song Qing was the son of my mother's lifelong friend. In terms of background and character, they were comparable. In terms of talent, they were equally matched. Their temperaments differed. Song Qing was more outgoing, while Bai Fu was more reserved. Beyond that, both were fine young men. Without hesitation, my father gave me his answer: Bai Fu is pure. He loves you and sees only you. When he learned your mother had betrothed you to Song Qing, he feared tarnishing your reputation and watched you only in secret, yet still, his eyes were fixed solely on you. As for Song Qing, he smiles at other girls besides you. Though he hasn't done anything improper, his heart isn't as pure. Banksia, I don't understand how women think. But I know this: if your mother smiled at any man besides me, I wouldn't be happy. Though you are a woman, as my beloved daughter, I believe you deserve a spouse as devoted as your father is to me. The answer was simple, yet it caught me off guard. So that's how it is. Men truly understand how to choose a partner. At the very least, one must not choose someone with divided loyalties. But I plucked up my courage and teased, "Father, you found a spouse without divided loyalties. But mother didn't." My father had few women, besides my mother. There was only one concubine. His face flushed crimson instantly. He lost his composure too, snapping at me, "Nonsense. I'm your father, how could I be the same? Why wouldn't he be the same?" But he dared to shout only because he was a man. I walked away laughing. I was quite satisfied with his answer. Bai Fu truly adored me. After consummating our marriage, he held me tightly with trembling hands. "It's real," he murmured. "Truly real." I wrapped my arms around him. "Yes, it is real." Bai Fu buried his face in the crook of my neck, whispering, "This lifetime isn't enough." My heart stirred. "How many lifetimes do you plan?" I asked softly. He murmured back, "Generation after generation." I traced his handsome brows and eyes with my fingers. Smiling, "You've used the wrong word." He said, "No. Starting from my generation as the ancestor, every reincarnation I undergo will be counted as a generation. Every ancestor, every generation, I will be with you. Every life, every moment, I will be with you." I choked up. "You'll be with me always?" "Yes. But what if you meet a better girl next life? Won't you want a new wife? Or what if you meet someone who captivates you in this life? Won't you want a concubine? If you never change wives or take concubines, staying with me every moment, wouldn't that be a waste?" Hearing this, he pouted and sought my lips, successfully silencing me. For a long time, I nearly suffocated from his kisses. Only then did he release me. He said, "The thought of being reborn in my mother's womb, unable to see each other until I grow up, makes me feel utterly miserable. How could I let other women come between us?" Banksia. My original name was Bai Jing. Do you know why I changed it to Bai Fu? He changed his name? I truly didn't know that. Why did he change it? He said, "On my first day as an apprentice, I saw a lovely little girl peeking through the door crack, her eyes brimming with curiosity. Meeting those bright, lively eyes, I was instantly spellbound. Later I learned you were the master's youngest daughter, named Banksia. The master said you suffered from constant coughing as a child. Banksia has cough-suppressing properties, so he renamed you Banksia to suppress your cough and prevent its recurrence." Hearing this, I begged my mother to change mine to Bai Fu. It also stops coughs. Every time the master calls me by Fu, I can suppress your cough demon a little more. Someday, as husband and wife, we'll join forces to crush that cough demon, banishing it forever. Suddenly, I dissolved into water. I couldn't utter a single word. Lying back, I gently drew his hand toward me, inviting him to make love. He immediately lit up with delight like a unicorn, bursting with wild abandon. Even at the height of passion, he never forgot to check on me, repeatedly asking if I was in pain. I climbed onto his shoulders, clinging tightly. Before falling asleep, I recalled my wedding night with Song Ching in a past life. Before me, his mother had arranged a concubine to teach him the ways of men and women. He performed with practiced ease. Only as he neared completion did he say to me, "The first time is bound to hurt. I'll be better next time." I was in excruciating pain then, but I gritted my teeth for him. Afterward, he collapsed and fell asleep. I got out of bed to clean myself. In that moment, I began to doubt, what good was marriage really? This lifetime, it was the same wedding night. My mind knew what to expect, I was prepared, but my body remained inexperienced, still felt the pain. Bai Fu was considerate from the start, though he himself was untouched. He understood that the first time hurts for both partners, and for the woman, the pain is more intense. We called for water 3 times, cleansing ourselves together. He said, "We could have gone again, but I couldn't ignore your health, Banksia. We have all the time in the world." I smiled and agreed. He held me as we fell asleep. On the second day of our marriage, I slept until late morning. Bai Fu hadn't risen either. When I opened my eyes, I met his gaze. His eyes were filled with laughter. "Good afternoon, my lady. Good afternoon, my lord." And so began a joyful day, hand in hand. We went to meet Lord Bai and Lady Bai. My father, Lord Bai, and Lord Song were all 7th-rank officials. Bai Fu and Song Ching were both scholars. Lord Song was serving as a county magistrate elsewhere but would return this year. Song Ching said he would rise to 6th rank. Lord Bai had little ambition for officialdom, content to stay at 7th rank and live a stable life. He carried no airs of officialdom. Smiling warmly as he dismissed our formal greetings, Madame Bai kept watching me, whispering to Lord Bai, "Look at Banksia, how lovely she is. To think she's our daughter-in-law now. Our son is truly blessed." She thought her voice was low, but Bai Fu and I heard every word clearly. My face flushed crimson instantly. Bai Fu clasped my hand tightly. Next came the tea ceremony and gift-giving. Young and old alike were joyful, the atmosphere warm and harmonious. After the meal, Bai Fu pulled me back to our courtyard. He said, "I don't want anyone else between us for even a moment." I smiled, "But they're your parents." "Even so, it won't do." After that, he immersed himself in his studies, preparing for the imperial examinations. He declared, "I shall attain the rank of 5th grade. My heart sank. In my previous life, Song Ching had ultimately reached the 5th grade. On the day of his promotion, the Song residence was filled with jubilant celebration. He held my hand, his excitement uncontrollable as he said, "My lady, I may now take 3 concubines? More hands to help you in the future." In that instant, my heart turned to ice, though I maintained my smile and congratulated him on achieving his wish. Song Ching wasn't particularly fond of women, but he strictly adhered to the rules of propriety. He believed a man must uphold the dignity of having both a wife and concubines, and must shoulder the heavy responsibility of carrying on the family line. The year after our marriage, I bore him a son. When our son turned 3, he attained the rank of 7th grade official. According to protocol, a 7th grade official could take 1 concubine. He took 1 swiftly. She was the illegitimate younger sister of one of his colleagues. I still remember that day. After the concubine-taking ceremony concluded, he wore red robes, holding Lady Yuan's hand as he strode briskly into the bridal chamber. His steps were so light, his expression so agitated. I sat alone, numb, through the entire night. The next day, he brought Yuanshi to present tea to me. I accepted it with a smile. After Yuanshi withdrew, he came over, took my hand, and said, "You've worked so hard for me, arranging the concubine ceremony, raising our child, everything." I heard none of it. I only smiled. His touch on my hand felt unbearably painful. After he went to Yuan's quarters, I watched for a very, very long time. When the novelty of his new concubine wore off and he returned to my room, I served him with a smile, though inside I felt as if a log were lodged in my chest. He teased me for clinging too rigidly to the rules of a proper wife, suggesting I could let loose occasionally. I closed my eyes and offered no reply, only wishing for him to finish quickly. Unsatisfied, he found excuses to return to Lady Yuan afterward. From then on, save for the 1st and 15th days of the lunar month, he seldom slept in my quarters. Lady Yuan soon conceived. Before he attained the rank of 5th grade, she bore him 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. Songqing cherished Pu'er, the child I bore him, most dearly. Yet he never neglected the education of his 3 concubine-born children. Madame Yuan possessed a gentle disposition and never stirred up trouble. Songqing's inner quarters were filled with peace and harmony. Though in matters of the bedroom, he lingered more with Madame Yuan. In all other affairs, he consulted me. I could always offer sound advice. He often sighed. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? Mother Song was also pleased with me. I devoted myself wholly to my husband, never jealous. As long as he was well, I was content with anything. Taking concubines was merely a matter of adding to his household, it didn't take my heart. Why should it be unacceptable? Soon, I accepted 2 concubines into our home. Songqing found it novel for a time. The following year, each new concubine bore him a child. After that, he resumed accompanying me on the 1st and 15th days of each lunar month without fail. On other days, whenever he sought me out, I politely declined. He voiced his grievances, showering me with gifts and silver, even resorting to pouting. I consistently excused myself by claiming physical discomfort. When pressed too hard, I would launch into a violent coughing fit. Even coughing up blood, he would hastily summon the household physician, instruct me to rest well, and then depart in haste. After bearing a son, my body was weakened, my qi and blood depleted, and I did indeed develop a chronic cough, but over the years I had long since recovered. I simply refused to see him outside the 1st and 15th days of the lunar month, much less share physical intimacy. His scent was no longer the pure, clean fragrance of soapberry. Each of the 3 concubines favored a different incense scent. Songqing's scent was a complex blend, sometimes carrying the fragrance of one concubine, other times a mixture of all 3. I truly could not bear to smell it, yet I couldn't very well disable my sense of smell. So I always avoided him, yet outwardly our relationship remained harmonious. I fulfilled every duty expected of a mistress of the house, except sharing his bed outside the 1st and 15th days of the lunar month. Even then, I seldom truly slept with him. Most nights it was his cough, sometimes my menstrual period, other times I simply fell asleep first. After I closed my eyes, he would cup my face and kiss me softly. Banksia, you've worked so hard, your kindness, my lord, is deeply etched in my heart. He believed my constant coughing stemmed from exhaustion, from tending to his 3 concubines and 6 children, yet he always assumed my devotion to managing his household came from my own free will. Not until his deathbed, clutching my hand, did he say, "To have been your husband this lifetime, Banksia, is my greatest contentment. Next lifetime, we shall continue." His eyes brimmed with expectation. He waited for my delight, for my affirmation, but I only withdrew my hand and shook my head at him. "You refuse?" He swept the medicine bowl from before him. Even near death, he could still startle me. Truthfully, I had never once defied his wishes. This was the first time that I crouched to gather the shards, offering no reply. The 3 concubines waiting outside heard the commotion and hurried in. Though none wept, Songqing, having stirred his emotions, exhausted his last reserves of strength. He gazed at our 4 indifferent eyes, and in his reluctance, breathed his last. His eyes remained open. The court physician entered and pressed them shut several times before they closed. The master had unfinished business, did he? I replied, yes. He worried his 3 concubines couldn't be buried with him. The physician choked, staring at me dumbstruck, saying nothing more. The 3 concubines hurriedly withdrew. But I troubled none of them. Before I died, I only instructed my son, bury all 3 concubines in your father's grave, to rest with him. Poor couldn't believe it. He asked me, "Mother, how can one be buried with concubines?" I said with unwavering resolve, "Every wish you hold, I will fulfill for you. I end this life, I have never asked you for a single thing." Poor wept. "Mother," he said, "I will obey you. Cremate me," I instructed, "scatter my ashes upon Mingwang Mountain. After death, I wish to watch over our home. Poor agreed. I in my past life, I had already resolved life after life, I would have no further connection with Song Ching. He never harmed me, nor did he harm my family, but I felt not the slightest lingering affection for him as my husband. As for my husband in this life, I looked at the man before me, Bai Fu, who was gazing at me with intense eyes. Why did you seek a fifth-rank official position? I held back, then held back again, but finally asked. Husband and wife should be of one mind, without barriers. He scratched his head. Looking embarrassed, Song Ching still harbors resentment about our marriage. His father dotes on him deeply. Now that he's a sixth-rank official, I fear my father and yours won't be able to keep the Song family in check and might cause us trouble. I thought if I became a fifth-rank official, he wouldn't dare. So that's it. I felt my heart settle back into place. I teased him, fifth rank isn't enough. What if his father gets promoted again? Or what if Song Ching passes the imperial exams and gets an official post? What if he surpasses fifth rank? If they're going to suppress us, let them crush him completely. Fine. Bai Fu showed off his 8 big teeth. He studied diligently by day and applied himself to me by night. Life was too beautiful for words. Even after I married and shared a loving bond with Bai Fu, Song Ching still wouldn't give up. It seemed to ignite his competitive spirit. He threw himself into his studies with fierce determination. Mrs. Song and my mother still kept in touch. She told my mother I thought he was of age and tried to arrange a marriage for him. But he flatly refused, saying it would interfere with his exams. So I dropped it. I considered finding him a concubine to ease his boredom. But he wouldn't hear of it either. It's as if his books were his wife. My mother just gave an awkward laugh. Though no marriage contract was ever written to formalize the engagement. Strictly speaking, it was we who broke the promise. Yet beyond Song Ching himself, his parents never once blamed us. His father held no resentment, believing it was merely idle talk between two ladies, nothing binding. If he were promoted, Song Ching could find a bride from a family of somewhat better standing. To him, sentiment meant little. Tangible benefits mattered most. Not only did Mrs. Song not blame us, she actively defended us. She said, who told him to think that after 3 years away, without a single letter, the girl would still wait for him? Any girl in her place would assume his heart had wandered elsewhere. She was furious. My mother, in turn, comforted her. She confided in my mother that in the very first year of his absence, Song Ching's father had secretly taken a mistress. Men are like that, they don't dwell on women. So she truly held no grudge against our family. Only Song Ching couldn't let go. Song's mother was truly remarkable. She told me, he feels abandoned and can't save face. It doesn't mean he particularly wants to marry you. He wants to become the top scholar someday and make you regret it. My mother laughed awkwardly beside her. She knew that even if Song Ching became the top scholar, or even the emperor, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. The following year, I gave birth to my first son with Bai Fu, Bai Kunbu. Kunbu remained a medicinal name, still for cough relief. My cough had long since ceased. But Bai Fu worried. By the end of that year, the imperial examination results were announced. Bai Fu became the top scholar, while Song Ching was the third-place scholar. He could have been second place. But the emperor, struck by his exceptional beauty, designated him third. They say the third princess, who was by the emperor's side at the time, stared at him in awe. Song Ching was indeed exceptionally handsome. When we were newlyweds, I would often find myself gazing at his face until I was lost in thought. Bai Fu returned and told me Song Ching would likely become a prince consort. A prince consort? Can a prince consort still hold office? He can hold a position below the 5th rank, but not in any important post. Bai Fu was pleased. The emperor privately summoned Bai Fu to inquire about his intentions. Bai Fu stated he wished to return to Pingzhou to take up an official post, desiring to serve his hometown. The emperor appreciated his loyalty to his roots and also intended to have him gain experience for future use. He became a minor county magistrate under Pingzhou's jurisdiction. Song Qing became the third princess's imperial son-in-law and was assigned to work as a compiler in the Hanlin Academy. We were in Pingzhou, he remained in the capital. I believed my connection with Song Qing was severed forever. Yet after I gave birth to our eldest daughter, Sangji, he divorced the third princess. He initiated it. He couldn't accept that even after marrying him, she still took male favorites. Taking a few would have been one thing, but she took 31. Each one was peerlessly handsome. Each one knew how to please her better than Song Qing ever could. They understood their place perfectly well. Each sought to win the princess's favor to secure tangible benefits for themselves and their families. It was said that imperial decree mandated couples must share a bed on the 1st and 15th days of each lunar month. Even the emperor adhered to this rule. Yet the third princess did not. It wasn't her fault, she simply couldn't manage them all. Song Qing was exceptionally handsome, surpassing every other male companion. But he was proud and unwilling to stoop to flattering the third princess. Finding this uninteresting, she simply ignored him. Never seeing his wife and no longer favored, he cried to the emperor like a disgraced concubine. After weeping over a dozen times, filling basins with snot, the emperor relented and granted him a divorce from the third princess. Without her prince consort, the third princess grew even more reckless. Song Qing resigned from the Hanlin Academy, returned to Pingzhou, and took a 7th-rank position. Song Qing came to see me. Bai Fu was out inspecting the dikes. As county magistrate, he was dutiful and conscientious. In his absence, I never received male visitors. I refused to meet him, but he threatened to bring the Dali Temple's investigation documents if I wouldn't see him. Not wanting to trouble Bai Fu, I held Sangji and brought Kunbu to meet him. Is this your child? Yes. He looked at Kunbu first, his eyes flickering with pity. Kunbu shares much of the temperament of Puer from my past life. Though I've never imposed strict demands on him, he still carries himself like a little adult. Then he looked at Sangji. Sangji is robust and healthy. She's been spoiled rotten and has become terribly self-indulgent. Even though she can walk perfectly well, she insists on clinging to me, demanding to be carried. Song Qing remarked, "This concubine-born daughter of yours is quite attached to you." Concubine-born? Kunbu frowned. Sangji asked me in her baby voice, "Mother, what's a concubine-born daughter?" I stroked her head and explained. Master Song misunderstood. "You are my daughter, not some concubine-born child." I felt my explanation fell short. Kunbu, who already understood the distinction between legitimate and illegitimate children, looked serious. She solemnly told Song Qing, "Lord Song, both my sister and I were born to our mother. In the Bai household, there are only legitimate children, no illegitimate ones. My father has only a legitimate wife. No concubines." No concubines? Song Qing froze. Wasn't Bai Fu a 7th-rank official just a few years ago? Yes. But he gave up his right to take concubines. Song Qing's expression darkened. I see. As expected. What are these children's names? The son is Kunbu. The daughter is Sangji. Kunbu. Sangji? The names sounded familiar, as if heard somewhere before. I didn't answer, unwilling to flaunt Bai Fu's affection for me. He didn't press further. He was naturally handsome, and his official robes only accentuated his distinguished bearing. Both children looked at him curiously. I knew Song Qing was about to speak, so I instructed the wet nurse to take the children to the lotus pond to feed the carp. The 2 children happily followed the wet nurse away. Song Qing and I sat facing each other. 2 wet nurses stood nearby, ready to attend to us. Song Qing got straight to the point. Banksia. I know the answer now. You gave up my answer. I wasn't surprised. He sought me out for no other reason than that matter. Truthfully, I was a bit taken aback. I'd thought after all these years, his obsession would have faded. Especially after such a painful experience. He surely wouldn't have the heart to dwell on it. Yet in reality, he was more stubborn than I'd ever known him to be in either lifetime. So I looked at him, waiting for him to continue. He was skilled at guessing, and I wondered what he was speculating now. Whatever it was, I'd deny it. After all, he couldn't possibly guess the answer. Is it because I took a concubine? I froze. His features hadn't aged yet, but his eyes held the shrewdness honed by years in office. Could it be that he? Yes. Banksia. I've returned too. You came back before me. Didn't you? I gripped the cup tightly, unsure how to respond. To say yes felt wrong. To say no felt wrong too. In our past life, we were childhood sweethearts, deeply in love. The year after your coming-of-age ceremony, we married without a hitch. The year after our wedding, you bore my eldest legitimate son. When the boy turned 3, I became county magistrate. Following the law, I took my first concubine, Lady Yuan. When our eldest son turned 10, I had attained the rank of 5th grade and took 2 more concubines, Lady Lin and Lady Chow. You personally arranged the concubinage ceremonies for all 3. They bore me 5 illegitimate children, all of whom recognized you as their mother. You arranged for each to have a suitable tutor and ensured they received diligent instruction. At the age of 40, I died of an epidemic. I made a pact with you for our next life. But you did not agree. After my death, you had our son bury me alongside my 3 concubines. Yet you scattered your ashes upon Mount Mingwang. Is there any error in what I say? Not a single one. He truly has returned. Not only does he recall events from his past life, but he knows the details of what happened after his death as well. His voice was deep and solemn. In my previous life, I was full of ambition and success, thriving both in my official career and family life. But you were not satisfied. Were you, Banksia? He fixed his gaze on me, not allowing me to look away. Before rebirth, I pondered long and hard. What exactly disappointed you so deeply that you married Bai Fu in haste? I inquired thoroughly. You and Bai Fu had no prior connection. After rebirth, I knew you must have reborn too. Yet I couldn't fathom why. As a husband and father, I fulfilled every duty in our past life. Why did you abandon me in both lifetimes? I racked my brain in vain. It wasn't until the princess took her first male companion that I tasted the bitterness of jealousy. When she conceived the 3rd companion's child, I felt the agony of betrayal. By the time she took her 11th male companion, I knew despair and hatred. Suddenly it dawned on me. Could your utter resolve stem from the pain I caused you in my past life by taking concubines? Causing you to turn your heart away from me? Yet something felt off. I recalled our married life. You remained gentle and smiling toward me, never quarreling or speaking harshly. Even after I took Lady Yuan as a concubine, your demeanor stayed warm and courteous, dignified and composed. You never gave me a cold shoulder nor tormented Lady Yuan. Then I recalled your cough. After our marriage, you coughed occasionally, but not often. Yet 2 months after Yuanshi entered our home, your cough suddenly worsened. After that, you used this as a reason to ask me to spend more time with Yuanshi. I thought you needed rest, so I complied with your wishes. Truthfully, you must have hated me from the moment I proposed taking a concubine. Otherwise, why would your cough worsen so abruptly? Banksia, you hate me, don't you? When you married me, you loved me. But after I took a concubine, your love gradually turned to hatred. Didn't it? Even though you always smiled at me. You hated me to death inside. Didn't you? He truly possessed extraordinary intelligence. I sighed inwardly. Hiding anything from him was now pointless. Before laying everything bare, I'd stab him first. My son is called Kelp. My daughter Mulberry Leaf. Do you know why Bai Fu named them thus? They sound familiar to you because they're both medicinal herbs, both effective for suppressing coughs. Yet in all our years of marriage, I never suffered from coughing. Why do you think that is? Song Qing stared in shock. Sanji is truly your child? In our past life, after giving birth to Puer, you refused to have more. Later, you wouldn't even let me touch you. Why? Just because I didn't name the child after a cough remedy? You stopped bearing children for me? I met his gaze and said coldly, Kunbu is 4 years older than Sanji. Song Qing froze. Then instantly understood. In my previous life, when Puer was 3, I didn't refuse intimacy with him. I even actively nurtured my health. I knew he, like all men, desired many children and descendants. I intended to bear him 1 or 2 more. But the year Puer turned 3, he was promoted to a 7th-rank official and hastily took a concubine. He reasoned that Kunbu was 4 years older than his younger sister. It was only when Kunbu was the same age as Puer that I conceived. But he had taken a concubine, someone to bear him children. Naturally, I would not bear him any more. With Bai Fu, however, I was his only wife. As husband and wife, one body, I naturally bore us another daughter. His eyes trembled. His hands trembled. His voice trembled as he asked me, am I not worthy? Not worthy of you bearing me children? Is that it? I nodded and added. Not only that, but there were other considerations. After giving birth to Sanji, I had actually planned to have another. But Bai Fu himself drank the child-blocking potion. He said 2 children were just right, any more would be too taxing. He was often out tending to the people's fields and couldn't stay at the manor much. The children's education would fall mainly to me, and he didn't want me to wear myself out. But in my past life, I made you raise 6 children. Song Qing's face instantly turned as pale as snow. I didn't deny it. Since we'd come this far, I might as well say more. After arranging your first concubine ceremony, I watched you, like an unmarried youth, frantically pull you onshore toward the bridal chamber. My heart felt pierced. Raging storms pouring through. I stood alone outside your bridal chamber, watching you 2 entwined. I collapsed. Later, I comforted myself, a man who caresses another woman is not my husband. I should regard him as my son. Only then did I recover. With the first experience behind me, the second time, when Lady Lin and Lady Chao entered simultaneously, I could manage to return. Collapse. And sleep. To regard you as my husband tore my heart apart. To see you as my son, though I couldn't match Lady Song's joy at her son's happiness, allowed me to find calm. At least, whenever I saw you with other women, I could meet it with composure. But that night when Puer ran a fever, I panicked. I wanted to lean on you, to have your comfort, to stand together facing this. I wanted to tell you how terrified I was of losing our child. You entered holding Yuanshi's hand. She just discovered she was pregnant, and your face radiated the joy of becoming a father again. You comforted me with casual ease, saying Puer would be fine, just a common cold. In that moment, I realized profoundly that you couldn't share my feelings. For me, Puer is my only child. I truly feared for his life. While you felt no such fear, you would have many children. When Lady Lin faced a difficult labor, you paced frantically. Sitting outside with you, I wondered, am I a monster? How could I watch my husband fret over another woman so calmly? In this era, men are permitted to take concubines. All women, myself included, were taught to accept this without scandal. So long as we held our position as principal wife. But when I truly shared a man with another woman, when I saw this man's emotions rise and fall for another woman, for the child born to another woman, I felt disoriented. I felt as though I wasn't a person. I felt like an object. A tool, anything but a human being. How could a person feel so numb? It wasn't until those years when you were posted as an official elsewhere that I gradually began to feel alive again. I discovered that as long as I didn't see you, life was bearable. Song Ching's tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry. Banksia. I shook my head. You owe me nothing. As you said, you're just like every man of this dynasty, honoring your wife, bearing children, securing your family's interests. I was wrong. I shouldn't have expected anything from the men of this era. Yet in this lifetime, you still married a man of this dynasty. His voice brimmed with reluctance. Speaking of this life, I couldn't help but laugh. Song's father kept a mistress, my father had a concubine. But my Bai-Fu had only me. He wanted only for us as husband and wife to remain whole, forbidding anyone to intrude. When he was first appointed county magistrate by the emperor, we lived in the county seat. The residents had not even a maid, employing only a steward and a wet nurse. I told Song Ching, Bai-Fu said young maids are fickle and troublesome. Old maids are far more reliable. No matter how grand our estate grows, we'll never hire maids, only old maids. Song Ching's expression darkened upon hearing this. I knew he was recalling our early marriage days, when a maid who'd served him since childhood tried to climb into his bed. Madame Song discovered her and gave her a thorough beating. But back then, he hadn't considered my feelings. Instead, as he sold that maid to a slave dealer, his ears flushed red when she cried out, "Master! Save me!" Then there was the senior maid who taught him the ways of the bedroom. While I was pregnant, she visited his quarters, and he did not refuse her. 4 days on end, he allowed her into his chambers. When I discovered this, rage consumed me, nearly causing a miscarriage. Madame Song, enraged, had the senior maid sold off as well. Men are all like me, vain, greedy, unable to control themselves. Song Ching defended himself. Have you placed too many illusions on the men of this world? His tone softened as he spoke. For in this lifetime, there truly existed men unlike him. He fixed his gaze on mine and asked, Gua Banksia, if Bai-Fu never existed in this world, would you never have married? But Bai-Fu does exist in this world. His hypothetical held no weight. My happiness in this life was real and tangible. Song Ching fled in disarray. If Bai-Fu weren't here, would I truly never marry? In my past life, Bai-Fu drowned during the 2nd month of our marriage. He'd gone with his father to inspect the dikes and fell into the water trying to save a child. Back then, my father wept the most bitterly. He beat his thigh and wailed, this world had only one man so pure and true, why did heaven take him away? He promised me that if Banksia ever suffered, he would marry her. What will become of my Banksia? That Song Ching lad, he's clearly a womanizer. More so than any of us old folks. My Banksia. What will become of her? I returned to the estate to visit my mother, who was ill. I witnessed the scene. My heart was utterly shattered. I couldn't believe my father cherished me so deeply. Even less could I fathom his true opinion of Song Ching. Back then, I hesitated, unable to trust my father's judgment. But after learning Song Ching had allowed the eldest maid into his chambers, I came to believe my father's assessment. Song Ching was more treacherous than anyone. I began observing my mother, Lady Song, and all the mistresses of the household. How they treated their husbands. They shared one common trait, they never let themselves fall for a man. But by then, I had already fallen for Song Ching. So, I wanted to walk the path they took, a path devoid of joy or sorrow. For me, it was even harder, because I had to go through the process of pulling my feelings out. It wasn't until Song Ching was on his deathbed that I finally let go of my expectations for him. At the same time, a seed was planted in my heart. If there was a next life, could I choose Bai Fu directly? After all, my father said he was the only pure man in this world. I wanted to know, would things be different if I were with Bai Fu? When I truly reincarnated, I immediately gathered my courage and asked Bai Fu. And so, a sweet life unfolded. Sometimes, I wonder, what if Bai Fu didn't exist in this world? What would I do? I dare not say I wouldn't marry. My parents and our clan couldn't bear such a scandalous act. But one thing I'm certain of, whether Bai Fu exists or not, I would still break off my engagement to Song Ching and marry a man I feel nothing for. Then, like all mistresses of the house in this world, I'd live a life of duty alone, no heart, no emotion, no love. But thankfully, Bai Fu exists in this world. Story Extra 1. Madame Gwen noticed her daughter Banksia had suddenly changed. She no longer kept asking why there was no news from Song Ching. She stopped going to the temple to pray for him. She even took the initiative to propose marriage to Bai Fu. Madame Gwen felt a jolt of alarm. What had Song Ching done that her daughter had discovered? She recalled her own reaction the first time she found her husband secretly sleeping with a maid. But would Song Ching betray Banksia? She wrote to Song's mother, probing indirectly. Song's mother replied bluntly, Song's father kept a mistress. Thinking she was unaware, but she simply couldn't be bothered to argue with him. As for Song Ching, many girls tossed him silk pouches and handkerchiefs, and he never refused. Thankfully, he hadn't truly crossed any lines. Madame Gua understood immediately. Her daughter must have secretly sent inquiries herself and grown disillusioned with Song Ching. But why choose Bai Fu? She had never seen her daughter interact with Bai Fu in any way beyond ordinary courtesy. Nor had she ever witnessed Bai Fu commit any impropriety. Did he truly fancy Banksia? Banksia had been frail since childhood, and she had always sought a reliable match for her. Lord Gua had several daughters, but he cherished this youngest one above all. She sought Lord Gua's counsel. Lord Gua patted his chest and guaranteed, Bai Fu was absolutely smitten with Banksia and would treat her well for the rest of their lives. Her heart settled somewhat. Yet a lingering worry remained. Hadn't she watched Song Ching grow up, only to misjudge him? She went to the temple to draw fortune sticks, seeking guidance on which of the two was truly suited for Banksia. The old monk told her, choose the first, and crows will circle your head, choose the second, and radiance will shine upon you. The first represented Song Ching's horoscope, the second, Bai Fu's. Her heart was settled. When Bai Fu came to propose, she feigned hesitation for a moment, then agreed. Side story 2. Song Ching, Bai Fu, and other sixth-rank officials were dispatched by the emperor to inspect the Yun region, renowned for its agate and jade. Before returning, Song Ching lingered long in a shop selling bracelets and hairpins, intending to select gifts for Banksia to send via his mother. In his past life, Banksia had always cherished such trinkets. Each time he presented them, she'd smile and say, "Thank you, my lord." His colleagues also began selecting jewelry, each with a beloved woman in mind. Only Bai Fu was nowhere to be seen. Didn't he want to bring something for Banksia? Hadn't Banksia called him the best husband? How good could someone be if they didn't even hold her in their heart? He felt inexplicably pleased. Banksia had misjudged him. Did this mean he still had a chance? He had divorced the princess, and she had divorced Bai Fu. They were still a match made in heaven. They were still young, they could still have Puer. Puer was their only legitimate son. Banksia loved this child dearly. If he asked, Banksia would surely agree. But the next moment, the fantasy shattered. The group of them, having finished selecting jewelry, came out and saw Bai Fu. He was examining ginger at a stall, picking up one piece, inspecting it repeatedly, then setting it down. He'd pick up another, examine it, and set it down again. The old woman selling ginger looked displeased. She complained, "You're being terribly rude. You've been picking for so long and haven't chosen a single piece. If you're not serious about buying, don't keep picking like this. You've picked them all out of shape. How am I supposed to sell them to others now?" Bai Fu apologized repeatedly, then patiently explained to the old woman, "Since my wife gave birth to our son, her hands and feet have been terribly cold. Every winter, they freeze unbearably. When I'm home, I warm her feet with my chest. When I'm away, I boil ginger into a decoction, mix it with medicinal herbs, and make a pouch for her to soak her feet in. Could you help me pick which ginger would warm my wife's feet as effectively as my chest?" The old woman paused for a long moment before saying, "I didn't intend to sell you the best ginger, but seeing your sincere concern for your wife, I'll give it to you. A man who treats his wife well must be a good man. This old woman looks out for good people." Bending down, she retrieved several pieces of ginger from beneath her stall, pinkish in hue and of superior quality. "Thank you. Thank you." Bai Fu received the ginger as if holding a precious treasure. The old woman asked for 1 tael of silver, but Bai Fu gave her 5 taels, saying it was compensation for spoiling the appearance of the other ginger. The old woman took the silver with trembling hands and told Bai Fu, "You truly are a good man. This old woman can read fortunes. Today, I'll give you one for free. You and your wife will be deeply devoted to each other, growing old together hand in hand. In the next life, the life after that, and countless lives beyond, you will still be together, your hearts in perfect harmony." Bai Fu's eyes widened in surprise, then filled with laughter until they crinkled. Song Qing felt as if a heavy stone had been placed on her chest, pressing down so she couldn't breathe. "Bai Fu will be with me for countless lifetimes. But one lifetime was enough to make me utterly weary of him." Witnessing the ginger purchase, the colleagues were deeply moved. One unmarried young colleague approached Bai Fu and said, "Brother Bai, the shop next door crafts exquisite hairpins, bracelets, and earrings at reasonable prices. Buy some for your wife, she'd surely love them." Bai Fu shook his head. "Brother Wang, you don't understand. My wife is different from others. She doesn't care much for jewelry or money. What she loves most is reading storybooks. Wherever we go, I hunt them down for her. But now she says she must teach our children to read and lead by example. So she only reads the works of great scholars." "Oh, I see," the young colleague exclaimed, suddenly understanding. He couldn't help but admire how extraordinary Bai Fu's wife was. Instead of continuing to praise his wife, Bai Fu asked the young colleague if he wanted to send his fiancée some local 18-spice chili peppers. The young colleague immediately laughed and agreed, saying both he and his future wife loved that flavor. Song Qing's face turned ashen, his heart nearly stopping. He hadn't known that Banksia truly loved storybooks. He had never truly observed Banksia, simply assuming women should like jewelry and money, and Banksia had never once told him what she truly desired. In his previous life, the gold and silver jewelry he'd bought without thought, Banksia had accepted. Now he knew it had been merely a perfunctory gesture. They had never truly been of one heart as husband and wife. His heart twisted in pain. Story Extra 3. When the emperor turned 80, he hosted a banquet for officials of similar age to celebrate. Bai Fu, now a third-rank official, was among the guests. The atmosphere was peaceful throughout the feast. Suddenly, a raccoon cat burst in, colliding with a young palace maid. The wine she carried spilled, drenching Bai Fu's robes and shoes. This was no major incident. Such mishaps were inevitable at court banquets. The palace always prepared spare garments and shoes in advance. Everyone assumed Bai Fu would simply move on. But he removed his shoe and began scrubbing it vigorously with a handkerchief. When the handkerchief grew soiled, he wiped it with his sleeve. Tears streamed down his face as he scrubbed. The young palace maid stood frozen. The other elders were equally perplexed. The emperor stared intently. He asked, "Minister Bai, what is this?" Bai Fu began to sob softly. He said, "Your Majesty, I do not blame the young maid. I simply grieve for these shoes. My wife spent a whole year sewing these for me. She was old, her eyesight failing, her strength waning. Each stitch took her a long time to pull the thread. I intended to wear these shoes to my grave." The emperor found this hard to believe. What's so special about these shoes? They're just shoes. I could bestow hundreds upon him. Bai Fu wiped his nose and stroked the shoes, saying, "All my shoes were made by my wife. In earlier years, fearing I might slip and fall into the dam below, she specially reinforced the soles for effective slip resistance. In her later years, worried I might stumble, she applied special treatment to the uppers so the shoes cling tightly to my feet. My big toe is bunioned, so she deliberately added extra space in the forefoot area. And then..." Bai Fu listed over a dozen such details, each a thoughtful modification tailored to his feet. Everyone present was deeply moved. One by one, they couldn't help but glance at their own shoes, then quietly withdrew their feet. Seated far away as a fifth-rank official, Song Qing felt a sharp pang in his chest. He too pulled his foot back. He had bunions as well, but he had never seen shoes specially made for them. He finally understood why he was still alive. It was to torment him. Every moment, everywhere, he was reminded that his wife in his past life had never truly loved him deeply. Their decades together had been nothing but a facade of affectionate spouses. He had always believed a virtuous wife and beautiful concubines were a man's blessing. Now he understood completely. A man's true blessing lay in loving and being deeply loved by his wife. He and Bai Fu were the same age. He was riddled with ailments, needing a cane to walk. Bai Fu, however, though his hair was entirely white, still had a rosy complexion. He was cared for meticulously by his wife. But the wife he married in this life passed away when he was 35. The subsequent consorts who attended to him never lifted a finger themselves. Their mouths were busy instead, either giving orders to maids or instructing the steward. As for the 3 concubines he took in, they spoke sweet words and served him with tender care, only to then demand gold, silver, jewelry, and money. Not one truly loved him. His suffering was profound. The emperor, too, was astonished. His eyes moistened, and he immediately summoned the imperial household department, ordering them to restore Lord Bai's shoes to their original state without fail. That very night, the emperor selected Consort Yu's tablet, nearly frightening the chief eunuch to death. Consort Yu was 70, but the emperor insisted, it must be Consort Yu. That night, the emperor and Consort Yu spoke of old times. The emperor sighed. No wonder Minister Bai never courted any woman, only guarding his old wife. People, when they grow old, like to reminisce about the past. Alas, Consort Yu, who could share those memories with him, had little left to say. Throughout his life, the emperor had known too many women, too many stories. He had to strain to recall just a few involving Consort Yu. Consort Yu responded briefly before losing interest and soon began snoring. Consort Yu had always been carefree. Her lack of favor never interfered with her eating, drinking, or sleeping. This was precisely why she outlived all the other consorts of her era. The emperor felt unsatisfied. Yet he did not blame Consort Yu. After all, she was advanced in years. Throughout his life, he had had 3 empresses and 2 noble consorts, but each had only accompanied him for a few years before passing away. Why did they all die so young? The emperor recalled those women who had departed too soon. Though each met a different end, The imperial physicians had diagnosed them all with the same underlying condition before their deaths, pent-up sorrow. Having attained the highest honor as the most esteemed women in the realm, what could they possibly have to grieve? He was a man. The emperor at that, how could he possibly favor just one woman? Women, he thought, were so petty-minded. They couldn't grasp this truth. Always clinging to a single moment of affection, hoping it would last a lifetime. How could a man possibly devote his entire life to just one woman? At this thought, Bai Fu came to mind. Before promoting Bai Fu, he had sent spies into the Bai residence to monitor him. Whatever Bai Fu did, they were to report it. For years, the daily reports were the same after court. Bai Fu would chat with his wife. Day after day, they'd talk about everything under the sun, family matters, neighborhood gossip, anything and everything. They could never seem to talk enough. It drove him utterly mad. He had no choice but to recall the spies and cease surveillance. Truthfully, Bai Fu's heart was wholly devoted to his wife, without a shred of wandering thoughts. Faking it for a day or two? Possible. Faking it for a year or two? Also possible. But 10 or 20 years? Impossible. This very loyalty made the suspicious emperor trust Bai Fu most of all. Truthfully, Bai Fu had no desire for advancement beyond 5th rank. The emperor had insisted on promoting him to 3rd rank and placing him in a crucial position. He who wrongs his wife loses all fortune. Bai Fu had never wronged his wife in the slightest. So the emperor had Bai Fu oversee the imperial treasury. Even at 80, he still wouldn't let him retire. Recalling Bai Fu cradling his shoes in tears, the emperor chuckled heartily. Side story 4. Guijia's Banksia suddenly became betrothed. My son, Song Qing, immediately chose the swiftest horse to race back to Pingzhou. He'd never spoken much of that girl before, merely tacitly approving the match. Yet upon learning Banksia had chosen another husband, he went mad. I tried to stop him, but I couldn't. He didn't know I had been reborn. His bond with Banksia had long since transformed from a virtuous connection into a karmic entanglement in the previous life. We matriarchs never yearn for our husband's affection. Living without emotion or love may seem carefree, yet it inevitably leaves regrets. That's why Banksia's mother and I hoped Song Qing and Banksia would be different. From childhood, we molded them together, hoping they would grow deeply attached and live a life of mutual devotion. A couple, after all, is better off with love to make their days bearable. They did indeed fall in love, but the foundation of their love was different. My son, Song Qing, regarded Banksia as his legitimate wife. Banksia of the Gua family regarded Song Qing as her lover. After Song Qing's promotion, he naturally assumed that as his legitimate wife, Banksia should allow him to take concubines. I intended to intervene, but it was too late. He had already set his sights on Yuanshi, the younger sister of a subordinate. I watched Banksia smile and consent. Yet when alone, she was overcome with grief. Terrified. Had Banksia never known love, she would have been like us, treated as an object by her husband, treating him as an object in return. But she wasn't. She had fallen in love. Once a woman falls in love, then suffers betrayal. She is capable of anything. I only begged her not to make widowhood her life's goal, to poison Song Qing early on. Banksia was kind-hearted, she didn't. But she withdrew all her care for Song Qing. When he went to disaster zones before, she'd always prepare epidemic prevention medicine for him. Later trips, she claimed illness and handed the preparations to the Chow and Lin families. Song Qing would grin foolishly at the embroidered sachets from the Chows and the amulets from the Lins. I prepared them, but he didn't take them seriously. When I realized he hadn't brought the medicine, I knew it was over. Heaven itself didn't want him to live. He contracted the plague. Yet with careful treatment and nurturing, recovery was still possible. But Banksia, who had once tended to him personally, handed the task of nursing him over to Yuanshi. Yuanshi had once cared for Songqing, but after he took 2 more concubines and turned away from her, she followed Banksia's example and closed her heart. She didn't poison Songqing either. She simply never reprimanded the young maidservant for the fire being too high or too low while brewing the medicine. When it came to measuring and administering the medicine, she never intervened. Even if they gave him more than prescribed or spilled some, that was enough. I had intended to care for him myself, but I was old and frail. Songqing lay in bed, his condition fluctuating, and soon passed away. At that time, I thought to myself, if there is a next life, I should still find Songqing a girl he doesn't love. Upon learning Banksia was betrothed to Baifu, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After Songqing divorced the princess, I hastened to find him a girl of matching status. That girl didn't love Songqing, nor did he love her. I thought, in this life, Songqing should live longer. But the outcome made me suffer even more. In the previous life, when his wife cherished him, he didn't treasure her. In this life, without love, he longingly envied Baifu's 70 years. Pitiable even more than an early death. Ah, if there is a next life, I shall still teach him to be someone who understands and cherishes love. A lover's deep affection is far more precious and beautiful than the novelty of a young maiden. Story Extra 5. Baifu and I lived to nearly 90. Free from disaster and illness. Passing away together in old age. We departed on the very same day. Before passing, he was emaciated, yet still clutched my hand tightly. I teased him, "Why do you hold on so dearly?" He replied, "When you love someone, love them wholeheartedly. That love will only deepen day by day. That's how it is for me, isn't it the same for you?" I nodded, smiling as I drew my final breath. The end.